Thank you for being with us. We are here to see functions in a spreadsheet, Excel for our case. What is the function? The function is a formula, a special formula containing a keyword. That keyword specifies an operation to be performed. We're going to see very many functions. We shall see a couple of functions to sum up values, to do average. So there is a keyword representing the operation that you are carrying out. If you are summing values, there's a function for summing. We shall get to see as we operate. So, as you know, I'm Eric Bossa. These are my names, Eric Bossa. I operate on these channels, YouTube. I also have another similar content on TikTok. So you reach me either on YouTube or TikTok using those very accounts. Then I ask you to subscribe, like, and comment. When you check the like icon, you operate the subscribe button and comment, you support the process, you support the cause of delivering content. So it gives me support. Then I put quizzes for you to sharpen your knowledge in the area, learning area. So there's a link in the quiz in the comment section. When you tap the link, you get to the content, the form shows up, and you start answering the questions therein based on how you have comprehended. And then you press the submit button at the end to be assessed in the learning area. We are thus going to look at a couple of functions. We shall see a function, sum function for adding up values, sum function that adds up. Then we shall see average for averaging, finding the average of values in a range. We shall see a function for counting function, count the addresses that contain values, numerical values. Those that don't contain numerical values are ignored, and it only counts those that have values. We shall see the function max for returning the highest value in a range, and conversely, we shall see min, a function for returning the lowest value in a range. So we shall use a shopping list as our case study. We have seen can make calculations. We derive the amount from the rate and quantity, multiplying rate and quantity using a simple formula, rate by quantity, and we're using the asterisk symbol to represent the multiplication. But then, after we need to find a grand total using a formula that has a keyword, what we call a function. So we shall use sum. When you type the first letter, the drop down shows all functions that start with that first letter. So we are dealing with sum. When you choose it, the screen tip, an explanation shows up trying to explain what the function does. So sum, it tells us it returns adds all numbers in a range of cells. So sum function. Then, having done that, we have what we call arguments to a function. Arguments are the things it's going to work on, the values that the function is working on, the subjects of the function. So in this case, it is a range. We have a range of values. So here, the arguments or what the function is going to work on are encased in a pair of parentheses, what we call brackets in common language. So we have a pair of parentheses, opening parentheses, and then we shall specify the range. In this case, the range is our argument for the function. So we have a range as that, and then we close off with the closing parentheses. So we have a pair of parentheses, and then the range we show the first value and the last value. the extreme values, the first value in the range and the last value. Between them is a full colon to specify that it's a range from one value, the first value, to the last value. So there are two values that are shown up, the first value and then the last value, but separated with a full colon. So that is our expression, the syntax for adding up values in this range using the function of sum. So when you confirm by pressing the enter key on the keyboard, it shows up the value. So that is a function sum to add up values in this range. We have already seen sum for adding up values. We go ahead to work with average to find an average in a range of values. So similarly here in the marksheet case, we have totaled up values, scores, so showing student scores. We have totaled them up, and then we are going ahead to find an average of scores. So similarly, we are finding average score using the function average, just like we've seen for sum. So average, as the screen tip explains, returns arithmetic mean, the arithmetic mean of its arguments. Arguments is the range over which the function is running. Okay, range can be numbers or names as the expression goes. So the screen tip tries to explain, shows you what the function does, average. So it returns the arithmetic mean, which is the same as average. Then we open the parentheses. We're going to see where that error comes from, error of name, opening parentheses on the keyboard, and then we specify the range where the values are to be picked. So here, because they are scores from tests, we shall specify the range. Specify the range over which the calculation is taking place. And then we close off the function with the closing parentheses. Then get the average value. So we have seen, we also have the sum, got in a similar fashion to add up the values. Then we also have the average, having a function average, just like we saw for sum, the function for adding up values. So this is for finding an average of values. And here, the function sum is for adding up values in a specified range. So we are then going to see, we have seen sum, average. Then we are going on to the count function, counting addresses that contain numbers or values. The ones that contain other characters or null are ignored. So the function syntax is just like in the other cases we have seen. Count, then the screen tip shows you, counts the number of cells that contain numbers. Then go ahead to express the syntax in a similar fashion like we did for the other cases. The system counts. It counts the values in a range that you have specified. You can see the colors are matching, and then the function is closed up, the closing parenthesis, to have a function that will count the values in a range, the range specified, and then it shows us how many. So those that have text or otherwise are blank, they are ignored. But once there is some value, like here we're seeing there are 43, the count is 43. So if I have a value here, the count increments. And then the count increments, meaning another value has been added. If there are 44 and there's another value here, then the count will increment, showing that value has been added. Or when you delete, it decrements. When you delete where there are values, it goes on decrementing, meaning it is ignoring the address where there is no value, or in case there is text in an address, it will still decrement because an address has been replaced with text. So the ones that are not numbers are ignored. Okay, when we copy here, then it also shows us when you have numbers where there are no numbers, it increments accordingly to show that there is. And likewise, when you put text, it decrements, showing an address has been replaced with a value that is non-logical according to the function. Our next function is max, maximum, returning the highest value in a range. Then the syntax goes as it were. We get to express with the function max. The screen tip explains to us returns the largest value in a set of values. It ignores the text, just like we had for the count function. It ignores that what does not fit with the logic, like text, those that are not numbers. So we have the expression returning the largest value in a range. If this is our range, specifying a range of values, then the system shows us the highest value in the range, that range, and these are the arguments. We specify the first value and the last value separated by a colon. Between them is a colon, show that it's a range, and then this is the highest value. In the same manner, there we had max, then we have in min-mam to show mean, min to show that we are returning the lowest value in that same range like we had for the previous case, the range that runs up to here, and then the lowest value shows up. So in a case where there's an error of typing, for example, if you type the function name wrongly, if I have meaning, which is supposed to be min, M-I-N, and I add an extra I, I'll get an error of name. So that error comes because of a problem with the function name. When you get that name error, it means there's a problem with the function naming. Sometimes there's a stray character. If I have a stray character, for example, there I have a comma, still returns the same thing. So when you see that error, name error, it means there's a problem with the function name and you have to inspect the function name. And then there are cases where maybe the brackets, the parentheses are mishandled. For example, I can have an additional bracket which does not work out. So I'll get a cautioning message informing us of a typo. A typo is a typing error, usually stray characters. then you are meant to do the needful to do the correction. So there are cases where the system asks if it can intervene to correct for you, then you go ahead, and then the correction is made. So all those are simple functions as we have seen. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the channel. I have content on YouTube and TikTok as well. I also have, I put quizzes in the comment section. You can access the quizzes to test your learning area. I'm grateful for your attention.